So tell us a little bit about where you come from, where did you grow up, and a little bit about your military service.
So I grew up in East Dallas, around, if you guys are familiar with that area, it's around White Rock Lake.
Yeah.
I went to high school south of Swiss Avenue at Woodrow Wilson. So I grew up in a really nice neighborhood, and I went to high school in a pretty bad neighborhood. It's better now due to gentrification. This is, 30 years ago. But Dallas is one of the most segregated cities in America. There's a great book about this called The Accommodation by Jim Schutz.
Great
During
book,
the
yeah.
all the way 40s, 50s, and 60s, in the rest of the United States, in the South, there were civil rights protests, but there was an accommodation between the black pastors and the leaders of the black community in Dallas to where they wouldn't protest. And as a result of that, a lot of the mixed racial integration that happened in other cities never happened in Dallas. And if you guys are from Dallas, it's one of the weirdest things to see, because like there are neighborhoods where there are only black people there. Like there is not a single white person that lives in a neighborhood, and vice versa. Like, I mean, you'd be surprised to see a black person living in University Park, and you'd be really surprised to see a white person living in Bontown, South Dallas. So it's I lived in Atlanta for a while. I've lived in Vegas for a long time. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in San Antonio. I've lived in Austin. I've spent a lot of time in Miami. I lived in Abu Dhabi for a while, and I will tell you, I've never seen a city more segregated than Dallas, Texas. And so it was one of these things where I would go to high school and I did not see a white person, and then I would go to church and I did not see a non-white person. And we're talking 5 miles away from each other on either side of Columbia Avenue. And so that was kind of my upbringing, where I got to see both sides. I think it's one of the reasons why I think it's very helpful for me, listening to my friends at church saying, talking about police brutality is exaggerated, and then going to high school and seeing police brutality was not exaggerated. It was a real thing. I think that was kind of an interesting dichotomy for me. Going to UT Austin, when I got there, I had no idea how to study, because my high school career was, it was not challenging in the least bit. I didn't understand how easy it was. I just thought, I found school to just be annoying. And when I got to UT Austin and I had to study for my business calculus exam, I didn't know how to study. I did not know how to actually bunker down and study until I found a tutor. And I was on academic probation. I've talked to a lot of other people who've been in the same situation where high school did not prepare them. They get to college, they go on academic probation their first semester. After that, I really learned how to study, which I'm actually really grateful for that whole experience, because I can tell you right now, I would not have made it as an aviator in the U.S. military had I not really learned how to study. If you guys want to know, stick work is important, but I was a navigator, so I didn't have to do any stick work. I was just in the back telling guys where to go. Stick work is pretty important, but probably the most important thing, if you want to become a great aviator, is the ability to study, to study beforehand and have the entire route prepped beforehand as an aviator in order to pass the exams, the FDC exams or stuff like that. That's probably the most important skill that you need to have. And it's also one of the things that I teach in my course, MOA Mentoring, is that when you can study, you actually know how to study. When you go to the first time you have to take the bar exam, or if you're going to a job interview and you want to be more prepared. I try to teach my clients to be more prepared than the interviewer whenever you go to a job interview. So a lot of times the guy doing the interview, he's a headhunter. He doesn't work for the company either. You want to know more about the company than the headhunter coming after you. You actually want to blow him away with all the information you have. You want to be incredibly sharp and knowledgeable about the content that you're able to give him. So that was something I learned from that lesson. At UT Austin, I developed an incredible love affair that I still have today for the concept of, for the subject of astrophysics. I got involved in it as an elective. It's one of the weirdest things with people who know me. Whenever we have conversations about aliens or space travel or any of this stuff, they're actually stunned that I know that it's, orbital velocity around the planet Earth is about 5 miles a second, and the speed of light is 182,282 miles per second. It's always confusing to them that I know so much about this one subject, but I loved astrophysics in college. It was really, really cool subject for me, and I spent probably the next 20 years reading every book I could on quantum mechanics and astrophysics and stuff like that. Had no bearing on my career whatsoever. And then finished. I had a BBA from UT Austin, business degree. From the Cox School of Business in Management Information Systems. So basically back then, so this is, 1999, this would have been just basically writing the basic, when you guys use Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, very basic versions of that. and with like supporting a website, stuff that you can get AI to do now in like 30 seconds. This was stuff that we were trying to learn expertise in back, 25 years ago. And I got out, and then 9/11 happened, or not 9/11 happened. There was a dot-com bubble, and then 9/11 happened. So there were two crashes. If you guys remember, there was a crash. There's a dot-com bubble crash.
Right?
Yeah.
99,
around 99, 2000.
Right? Yep.
Then there was another crash in 2001, and then there was another crash in 2003, which had to do with oil prices, the price of petroleum once there was the invasion of Iraq in March of 2003. During that time period, I had just graduated from college. It was a very tumultuous time. And you'll see like market downturns actually lead to less employment. That's a real thing, especially when you're at the bottom of the employment market, meaning you're just coming into as a new employee, just graduating from college. I couldn't find a job after the dot-com bubble, but there was another precipitating factor with the dot-com bubble, which was the collapse of Enron and MCI WorldCom. And when those things collapsed, it caused me to try to go find a job anywhere I could. At the time, I was a door manager at a nightclub. A nightclub. It wouldn't be called a nightclub here in Vegas, but it was a bar basically on 6th Street called Amazon Shop Bar. One of the bartenders, she was getting her PhD in forensic psychology. And she was paying for it by being a stripper. And so she would strip on her off days when she wasn't a bartender. And she told me to go apply to be a DJ at this one strip club. It's called, if you guys are ever in Austin, Texas, it's called the Red Rose on Congress Avenue. It used to be called Expose, 20 years ago. And so I applied as a joke. Richard, I thought I was totally being fun. It was just one of these things where I was like, oh man, I kind of want to see what a strip club is like. And I went in there and applied as a joke. And I'll tell you right now, I got the job after an hour of doing it. And once I got the flow of it, they gave me the job. And after they gave me the job, I spent 4 days a week, 8 hours a day on a microphone, if you want to talk about on-the-job training, people think it's so silly when I say this, but it really is true. Being a DJ at a strip club is going to help your presentation on a microphone better than any other job. Even if you are a radio DJ on the radio because of the commercial breaks, that may be quite as much. And like today being a podcaster, but no singular thing helped me to become a podcaster and become a better coach than talking on the microphone for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week for 4 years. Like that is a real thing. And a lot of people are like, that's silly. You worked at a strip club. Like, no, man, I actually learned a ton. And I also learned a ton about intersexual dynamics. Around this time, you figure this is like 2001, 2002, 2003. This is the same time that Rollo Tomasi is writing The Rational Male, or the original essays that become The Rational Male in the Soso-Op forums. So he and I are going on a similar journey. Although, Rollo's about 10 years older than me, we're going on a similar journey at this time in our lives. And the internet is starting to coagulate into like static websites, but we don't have high-speed internet yet. We don't have high-speed 4K images. In fact, we don't even have high definition until 2004. We don't even have text messaging until 2004 in the United States. They have it in Europe. We don't even have bottle service. We don't even get to like the bottle rats and the cocktail service. That doesn't even happen until 2004. We just have like the early stages of the pickup industry, stuff like that was going on back then. And then so, now at this point, I'm working at the strip club, and I watched 9/11 happen at the strip club. Now, it's so funny because when you ask people about where they were for 9/11, they always tell you. In my mind, I saw the towers go down, but in reality, I couldn't have because I didn't get to work till 11. Well, 11 a.m. in Austin, Texas is noon in New York City. Yep. So is it? Yes, noon in New York City. So I watched the towers come down 3 hours after they came down. But in my mind, I remember them coming down. But then I went back and did the math. I was like, there's no way I could have seen this. And I remember at first thinking like this was just an accident. And then when the second tower came down, I remember thinking, okay, this is not an accident. And it took me a couple of like I had to like resolve it in my mind what was going on. And I had two fraternity brothers, who Antonio Edwards and Marcus Cole, who ended up joining the Marine Corps and the Navy as aviators. Marcus ended up flying, I want to say he flew C-130s, and then Antonio, it became an EA-6B navigator in the Marine Corps. And so I went to the Marine Corps and I was going to try to join as an officer. They didn't have any spots. Everyone, obviously, you guys can imagine, after 9/11, recruiters' offices were packed full of guys like me trying to join the military. Yeah. And the only spot I could get, I went to the Air Force and I told them I wanted to work intelligence. And they told me the only spot they had for me was an aviator. So they got me a spot as a navigator. I took the AFLQT. I scored it like in the highest percentile from the nav pilot portion. And they asked me if I wanted to be a pilot. And I was like, I have no interest in being a pilot. And not because I don't like being a pilot, but because it was an 11-year commitment. And being a navigator was a 7-year commitment. So I took that instead. And so I ended up becoming, it took a while, went through school, became a KC-135 navigator. And this is one of the craziest points in my life, because 2007, 2008, a couple of things happened. Number one, I'm living in Atlanta, Georgia. Number two, I'm going out with like some of these club promoters on the weekends while I'm an officer during the week. And these guys are better with women than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. Remember, I used to manage a strip club. Now I'm hanging out with these like world-class club promoters. And so it's like I'm starting to formulate the pieces that would eventually become Men of Action. And during that time period, that's also when I met Mystery. Later on, I would meet Neil Strauss, but like I met Mystery at that point. He and I became friends. And then my father, he passed away in 2006. By 2008, I'm coaching people. I'm actually starting to do my own coaching from 2008 until 2019. I'm coaching pretty much for free for like 11, 12 years. And which is the reason why the course took off so quickly whenever we launched it in October of 2020. So from that point on, man, I'm in the military until 2011. Once 2011 happens, I get out. I remember distinctly watching the Mavericks win the NBA championship. Very happy about that. And then I ended up moving to Las Vegas, and I'm splitting my time 50-50 between Vegas and Los Angeles. And for 2 years, I'm splitting time going back and forward. And I just come to the realization that what I thought Los Angeles was going to be, Richard, is what Vegas actually was. I thought I was going to move to LA. I thought I was going to go to Santa Monica and see beautiful blonde women in fucking bathing suits running up and down the beach playing Frisbee. And the first time you get to the Santa Monica Pier and you see there's like 70 Mexicans like just fucking fishing off the end of that motherfucker, and there's no attractive women around there anywhere. And then you come to then you go to the nightclubs in LA and just realize like no one's good looking there, and it's just nothing but traffic, taxes, and homelessness. Then you go to Vegas and the first time you go to Encore Beach Club or Tao Beach, the first time you go to, Wet Republic, or the first time you go to IU or Live Beach or someplace like that. And you see oh my God, these are the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And like, I live in Vegas, so I get in here for free. I'm standing on stage with the DJ. And so it took me about 2 years because I wanted to become an actor. I just gave up on my dream and living in LA. I moved to Vegas and I was there permanently. And so from 2011 until 2014, 15, I was just like kind of a minor event host. And then probably my big break was 2015. I ended up on accident hosting the Maxim Halloween party as their MC. And then from there, everything took off, because that was the day I met the guy who runs Paradise Challenge. And that was also the day that the guy who owns Babes in Toyland asked me to become the host of his event. And so I've been the host for Babes in Toyland, the Teatro parties, Paradise Challenge, Model Citizen Fund, and Smash Global, and several other events. I've been their MCs ever since then, and Swimsuit USA since 2019. And then from that point on, man, I started hosting bikini competitions. I've hosted 59 bikini competitions to this date. And all this information, like my existence in Las Vegas was just so wonderful. It's like I could go anywhere I wanted. Half the time they wouldn't even charge me for food when I went to dinner someplace. I got free hotel rooms. I would go on stage with my favorite DJ. Beautiful women would come into town. I'd be the first guy they hit it up. Whenever Richard, you hear somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to Vegas and I got a guy." He goes, "Oh, I'm going to go to the show. I got a guy. I'm the guy that they got." I'm almost always there. Whenever Adam Sosnick, who runs Saucecast, his PBD's partner, he goes, "I'm in Vegas. Whenever I go to Vegas, I got a guy." He's talking about me, right? And so, I became friends with the nightlife hosts. One of the crazy thing is all the nightlife directors are the guys who own the nightlife group. So that's like Jason Strauss, Ron Nicoli over at Zook, the guys who run this, like the guys who run the stage over at XS, Jack Womack and Dave Haddon, they all watch my podcast. So it was like even more of a great connection through that. And that was another thing I learned, was having a podcast and creating content on a regular basis could turn you into a local celebrity, which is maybe like, it's not really famous, not like a 10 out of 10 famous. It's like 2 or 3 out of 10 famous. But when you're a local celebrity, every girl in your city knows what you look like. Everyone who's like hiring knows who you are. Everyone who's throwing a party invites you to their party. Every time you have a party, everyone wants to show up. Every single restaurant, the owner of the restaurant knows who you are. Every single nightclub, as soon as you walk up, they know who you are. It's kind of like local celebrity status. And then I was just like, man, I need to teach this. Like all these things that I've learned, like for me, work is work. But when I go home, when I want to go out, I'm on stage with Skrillex 12 minutes after I leave the gym. And then I'm back home in my bed watching Netflix 12 minutes after I get off stage with Skrillex. Like, how can I transmute this to other people in their lives? And so I decided to do that in my course. and of action. I teach you how to be a leader. So I teach all the concepts of leadership that I learned from being in the military. I teach you how to be a great communicator, all the concepts I learned from public speaking. I teach you how to become an incredible networker, all the concepts that I've learned from all the books that I've read and all the networking I've done from hosting a podcast. I teach you how to become really, really, really efficient at dating from all the things that I've learned from the multiple dating coaches that I work with, to the fact that I have hundreds and hundreds of beautiful female friends that sort of introduce me to other women, get me into incredible places, and then also calibrate me to talking to beautiful women. So from all those lessons, I basically took 25 years of lessons that I just explained to you, and I put it into a course that's 10 pillars long. And you can take the course now. I mean, it's available for a lot of people. I've had 1,600 clients go through the course. And when they're done, every single one of them comes to me and it was like, hey man, the course and that book list, there's a 30-book book list you're supposed to go through. It takes about a year to get through. When they get through it, it's life-changing. I want you to go through all the things that I went through and all the mistakes that I made, getting your heart broken, going bankrupt, all that kind of stuff. I want you to go through all those things at the speed of light, like really quickly, so that you can get through you can fail faster. That's what the program is to help you do, is to help you get through those things faster. So that's where MOA mentoring came from.
Hey, so you stayed to the end. If you're still watching this, I have a gift for you. Click the link below and I will teach you how to position yourself as a high status man. And yes, it's absolutely free.